There's a hidden cost to being liked by everyone, and it's usually your potential. I was walking through the airport one evening and I saw something that struck me. A man holding doors open for everyone, smiling, nodding, being the image of kindness. But here's the catch. He missed his flight. Why? Because he was so focused on helping everyone else move forward, he never noticed that his own gate was closing. And that's what too many people are doing in life. They're missing their destiny because they're addicted to being liked. They're sacrificing their dreams on the altar of approval. They're being polite while the doors to opportunity shut quietly behind them. Now listen, kindness is a virtue, but chronic niceness without boundaries is a sickness. And it's rooted in fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough unless you're always agreeable. But here's the truth. Weak minds stay broke, not because they aren't talented, not because they don't have good hearts, but because they lack the courage to stand firm, say no, and guard the gates of their time and energy. You see, success is not a popularity contest. It's a clarity, and the clearer you are about who you are and where you're going, the more comfortable you must become with disappointing the wrong people so you can honor the right purpose. So today, let's have an honest conversation. Not about being rude, but about being real. Because if you don't stop being too nice, success will keep slipping through your hands like water. I remember having a conversation with a young man who came up to me after a seminar. He was frustrated. He said, "I'm doing everything right. I help my coworkers. I always say yes to my boss. I never complain, and still, I'm stuck. I'm not moving ahead." I asked him one simple question. Who told you that success comes from being everyone's favorite? He blinked, confused, and I could tell right then the root of the problem wasn't lack of effort. It was a misunderstanding of value. You see, people-pleasing is one of the great hidden traps that masquerades as virtue. It sounds good, it looks polite, but deep down, it's often fear wearing a friendly face. And fear, when left unchecked, always leads to lack of progress, lack of peace, and lack of wealth. Let me be clear. Kindness is powerful. Respect is essential. But people-pleasing, that need to constantly win approval, to never rock the boat, to always say yes out of fear of being disliked, that's not kindness. That's a poverty habit. And habits like that don't just cost you money, they cost you self-respect. I've seen this happen over and over. People give away their time like it's worthless. They overextend themselves, take on other people's problems, and delay their dreams to accommodate someone else's comfort. And do you know what happens when you do that long enough? You start losing your identity. You forget what you were building in the first place. You don't just fall behind in your career or business, you fall behind in your purpose. I once worked with a small business owner who ran a local print shop. Wonderful man, but his business never grew. Every time a customer walked in asking for a last-minute order, he'd say yes, even if it meant staying up till 3 a.m. He never raised his prices because he didn't want to upset his regulars. He hired his cousin, even though the cousin didn't pull his weight, just to avoid conflict. And over time, his energy wore out, his margins thinned, and he stopped innovating. Not because he lacked talent, but because he let approval become more important than progress. Now contrast that with someone who builds boundaries. Someone who understands that saying no doesn't make you cruel, it makes you clear. The wealthiest people I've met have one thing in common. They respect their time more than they fear your opinion. And because of that, they make better decisions, create stronger partnerships, and live with greater peace. That's what I want you to hear today. Success is not built on sacrifice alone. It's built on selective sacrifice. You've got to learn to choose where your energy goes. If you try to make everyone happy, you'll end up making no one proud, not even yourself. Life is short. And time, my friend, is wealth in motion. Every time you say yes out of guilt, every time you say yes to avoid discomfort, you are making a withdrawal from your purpose account. It took me years to learn that the people I was trying to please, half of them weren't even paying attention. And the other half, they were using my efforts for their gain, not mine. I was building their house while mine stood unfinished. You've got to ask yourself, are you climbing your own ladder, or are you stuck holding one for someone else? We've all heard the phrase, nice guys finish last. But let me give you a better version. Nice guys who never say no, never set boundaries, and never speak their truth don't finish at all. They burn out. They fade into the background. They grow resentful, wondering why the world doesn't reward their sacrifices. But the world doesn't pay you for effort. It pays you for value. And if your value is constantly being diluted by trying to keep everyone happy, you won't just fall behind. You'll disappear. You've got to train your mind to distinguish between compassion and compliance. Compassion is offering a hand when someone's down. Compliance is bending over backward just because you're afraid to be disliked. One uplifts, the other enslaves. And this goes deeper than just career or business. Look at your relationships. If you're always the one adjusting, apologizing, or explaining yourself, that's not love. That's self-erasure. Healthy living, truly rich living, isn't just about bank accounts. It's about freedom. Freedom to be yourself. Freedom to pursue your vision. Freedom to say no without guilt. And don't let anyone guilt you for that. People who benefit from your people-pleasing will always call your boundaries selfish. That's fine. Let them call it what they want. While they're stuck in a cycle of dependency and drama, you'll be building, growing, thriving. So how do you stop being too nice in a world that rewards politeness? You develop discernment. You learn to ask, does this action align with my long-term goal, or is it just a short-term bandage for someone else's comfort? You get comfortable with silence after a firm no. You practice being uncomfortable for a moment so you can be proud for a lifetime. Success demands strength, not arrogance, but strength. And strength comes from doing what's right for your future, not what's easy for the moment. I want you to build a life you don't have to escape from, but that starts by escaping the need to be everyone's savior. The next time someone pressures you for your time, your energy, your money, ask yourself this: is this a deposit or a withdrawal from my vision? If it's a deposit, great. If it's a withdrawal and you keep letting it happen, don't be surprised when the account runs dry. I don't want you broke in spirit or in wallet because you couldn't say no. I want you strong, wealthy, decisive. I want you to be the person who walks into a room and doesn't need everyone's approval because they already carry purpose like armor. Here's what I've learned. When you stop chasing approval, you start attracting respect. And respect, unlike approval, builds empires. That's all I have to say about that. Let me share something that took me far too long to understand. Every time you say yes to something you don't truly want, you're saying no to something that could have changed your life. That's the trade-off. Every yes has a cost, and some of us are going broke. Not in money, but in time, focus, and personal growth. Because we keep spending our yes on the wrong things. Now, don't get me wrong. Being agreeable, being helpful, being cooperative, these are fine qualities. But if you don't learn to temper them with discipline, they will become the very chains that keep you from rising. Too many people are trapped by their own politeness. They're afraid to disappoint, afraid to look selfish, so they say yes to everything. They volunteer for extra work they don't want. They show up to events they're not interested in. They answer every phone call, reply to every message, help everyone move, attend every meeting. And at the end of the week, they wonder why they made no progress. Let me tell you why. Because saying yes to everything is the fastest way to end up nowhere. I remember back when I first started learning the difference between activity and productivity. I was busy all day, on the phone, running errands, helping folks, always in motion. But guess what? My income didn't change. My health didn't improve. My relationships stayed the same. I was spinning in circles and calling it progress. That's when I learned a valuable truth. Being busy isn't the same as being effective. And more often than not, it's all the extra yeses, the small distractions, the non-essential tasks, the requests you didn't want to take on, that rob you of your greatest potential. Nice people get buried under obligations because they haven't learned to treat their time like treasure. They give it away freely. They act like it's unlimited. But the high achievers, the ones who really build wealth, who grow in wisdom and influence, those people treat their time like gold. They know it's limited. They guard it. They defend it. They say no to the good so they can say yes to the best. You've got to ask yourself, how many yeses are keeping you from your own greatness? How many projects did you take on out of guilt? How many calls did you answer that drained you? How many hours did you spend solving someone else's problem when your own goals were sitting on the shelf? See, the tragedy isn't that we don't have time. The tragedy is how we spend it. I once mentored a man who had incredible potential. He had ideas, drive, charisma. He could have built something remarkable. But every week he'd come to me, exhausted. I helped my friend launch his business. I covered a shift for my cousin. I drove my neighbor to the airport, always helping, always saying yes. And after a while, I stopped seeing progress, so I told him, "You're building castles in other people's kingdoms. When are you going to build your own?" He was stunned. And then he got it. Because sometimes what feels like kindness is really a clever form of avoidance. We say yes to others because it's easier than facing our own dreams. Because our own dreams demand discipline, accountability, work. And often we use people-pleasing as a shield from our own potential. But here's what I want you to understand. Your potential is sacred. It deserves your full attention. And if you keep renting out your energy to every distraction that knocks on your door, you'll never have enough left to build something meaningful. You need boundaries, not to keep people out, but to keep your purpose in. That's the shift. And it starts with learning that no is not a dirty word. No is a compass. No is how you carve out space for what matters. Every time you say no to the unnecessary, you're saying yes to your growth, your clarity, your momentum. Let me tell you something else I learned. The people who get offended by your no are often the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries. And they'll try to guilt you. They'll say, "You've changed. You're not as available. You're being selfish." Let them talk. While they're busy complaining, you'll be busy building. Let your results speak louder than their resistance. Now, this doesn't mean you stop helping people. It means you stop hurting yourself in the process. Help where it aligns. Serve where it strengthens your mission. But don't confuse overextension with generosity. One builds your life. The other burns you out. I've learned to ask myself, before I say yes, is this aligned with where I want to go? If the answer is no, then the decision is no. Simple. You don't owe explanations for protecting your energy. You don't owe guilt for choosing your future. If you want to build wealth, real wealth, you've got to learn the value of a focused life. Wealth doesn't just flow to those who work hard. It flows to those who work smart, those who manage their energy, those who filter their commitments. You've got to protect your calendar like it's your bank account. Because in a way, it is. Every wasted hour is money you'll never see. Every pointless yes is a withdrawal from your purpose. Look, the world is full of distractions, wrapped in the costume of opportunity. Not every request deserves your attention. Not every invitation deserves your presence. And not every relationship deserves your investment. Your life is not a community service project. It's a legacy in progress. And every time you say yes out of fear, out of guilt, out of habit, you're giving that legacy away one piece at a time. So from this day forward, I want you to start measuring your yeses. Guard them like gold. Because the truth is, your life becomes what you agree to. And if you keep saying yes to everything, don't be surprised when your vision gets lost in the noise. You must learn to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. And when you do, you'll stop feeling drained, stop feeling resentful. That's all I have to say about that. One of the most important lessons you'll ever learn in life is this: your lead. I remember sitting in a coffee shop once, listening to a young man vent about his coworkers. He said, "They always dump extra work on me. I stay late, I help out, and no one even says thank you." He was frustrated, drained. And I asked him a simple question: why do you let them? He blinked, like it hadn't even occurred to him that he had a choice. That maybe, just maybe, he'd been teaching them that it was okay to overstep his boundaries. See, the problem wasn't just that they were taking advantage. The problem was that he kept saying yes, kept showing up, kept being available, even when it came at the cost of his own sanity. That wasn't kindness. That was quiet permission. You've got to understand, people will test your limits, not because they're malicious, but because that's what people do. They push, they ask, they stretch. And if you never push back, if you never draw the line, they'll assume there is no line. You become the go-to, the one who never says no, the one who doesn't mind being second or third or last. And it doesn't take long before resentment replaces respect. Let me give you an example from my own life. Early in my career, I found myself constantly rearranging my schedule to accommodate others. Meetings at the last minute, phone calls during dinner, requests to speak, consult, help out, all dropped on me without notice. And you know what I did? I said yes, because I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to upset anyone. I thought being nice would earn me loyalty. But here's what I learned. When you bend over backwards too long, people forget you have a spine. What I discovered was this: kindness without boundaries is exploitation waiting to happen. You can be respectful and still be firm. You can be generous and still say no. And if you let people interrupt your goals, your rest, your peace, you're training them to believe that your needs don't matter. Now, you may say, "But I don't want to be rude." I get that. No one's asking you to be rude. You don't have to raise your voice to raise your standards. You don't have to be loud to be respected. Sometimes the strongest message you can send is a calm, steady, unapologetic no. Let me tell you, it's not about being mean. It's about being clear. Clear about what you'll accept, clear about what you'll allow. Because if you don't set the standard, someone else will set it for you, and chances are it'll be much lower than you deserve. Think about your relationships. Have you ever had someone in your life who constantly crossed the line? Maybe they spoke to you with sarcasm. Maybe they never respected your time. Maybe they leaned on you for every little thing, but disappeared when you needed help. And yet, you stayed silent. You smiled. You carried on. You let it slide. And that silence, that was a signal. That was your green light telling them this is okay. But here's what I want you to know. It's not okay. And you're not being nice by letting it continue. You're just delaying the confrontation, and eventually the bill always comes due, either in your energy, your peace, or your success. Success, real success, demands that you value your own time, your own voice, and your own purpose enough to protect them. If you're constantly putting yourself last, how can you ever expect others to put you first? If you don't honor your own boundaries, how can you ask others to respect them? I've seen it too many times. Bright, talented people stuck in a cycle of overgiving and under-receiving. They're drained, they're frustrated, but they keep smiling, keep helping, keep allowing. Because they believe being liked is more important than being respected. But let me tell you something that might sting a little. Being liked won't build your legacy. Being liked won't secure your financial freedom. Being liked won't help you grow into the person you were meant to be. Respect will. Discipline will. Boundaries will. And if someone stops liking you because you finally said enough, that's not a loss, that's a lesson. That's proof that the relationship was based on your compliance, not your value. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your life, not your time, not your energy, not your peace. Those are earned. And if someone continually disrespects you after you've clearly expressed your limits, you're not obligated to keep them close. You can love people from a distance. You can forgive them and still remove yourself from their influence. The moment you stop tolerating disrespect, disguised as kindness, the game changes. The moment you stop showing up for people who wouldn't cross the street for you, you reclaim your power. The moment you stop begging for approval and start walking in conviction, success starts paying attention. People watch your behavior. They listen to how you speak about yourself. They notice what you let slide. And when you raise your standard, not just with words, but with consistent action, they rise to meet it, or they remove themselves. Either way, you win. So take inventory. Where in your life are you being stepped on because you refuse to stand up? Who in your circle continues to take because you never learned to say that's enough? And what does that silence cost you? Emotionally, mentally, financially? It's time to stop asking for better treatment and start training it. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with firm boundaries, consistent behavior, and a deep belief in your worth. Let me share something with you that might sound a little harsh, but it's absolutely true. Success doesn't care about your popularity. It doesn't care if people like you, approve of you, or think you're the nicest person in the room. Success demands standards, not sympathy. I've seen too many people get caught up in this idea that the path to success is paved with kindness, with doing whatever it takes to keep everyone happy. But let me tell you, success doesn't come to those who are simply agreeable. It doesn't favor the people who bend over backward to avoid conflict or to please others. Success comes to those who have standards, those who are disciplined enough to uphold those standards, even when it's uncomfortable. You see, when you're overly nice, you start lowering your own standards. You begin to tolerate things you shouldn't tolerate. You excuse behavior that should never be excused. You avoid the tough conversations because you don't want to upset anyone. You allow mediocrity to slide by because you're more concerned about being liked than about being effective. And in doing so, you create a culture of complacency in your life. Now let's talk about discipline. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Without it, you have nothing but good intentions and empty promises. But discipline requires a certain level of toughness. It requires a commitment to yourself and your goals, regardless of how others might feel about it. I had a friend once, a very nice guy. He was always helping people, always saying yes to everyone's request, always putting his own dreams and needs on the back burner. He was loved by everyone, but he was also stuck in mediocrity. He was always busy, but he was never productive. He was running around doing things for others, but never accomplishing the things he needed for his own life. And after a while, I asked him, "Do you know why you're stuck?" He looked at me, puzzled. No, why? It's because you've got no standards, I told him. You've got no boundaries. You've been letting others set your priorities for you. You're doing everything for them and nothing for yourself. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't incompetent. He just didn't have any standards. He allowed himself to be pulled in every direction by the whims of others. His lack of discipline and focus had become the reason for his stagnation. He was in a cycle of doing things for everyone else, but never doing what was necessary to move his own life forward. Here's the truth about success. It's a byproduct of your discipline, not your likability. People may like you for being accommodating, for always saying yes, but will they respect you for achieving your dreams? Will they value your work, your effort, your results? The answer is no. People respect people who set standards for themselves and for others. People who demand excellence in all they do. You can't be afraid to raise the bar. You can't be afraid to set high expectations for yourself and for those around you. But what happens when you do? When you raise the bar, when you hold people, including yourself, accountable, you'll get pushback. People won't like it. They'll say you're being too hard, too strict, too demanding, and you'll have to make a choice. You'll have to decide, do I want to be liked or do I want to be successful? If you choose success, you'll quickly realize that discipline is the only way forward. Discipline isn't about being mean. It's about being relentless in your pursuit of your goals. It's about staying focused, even when it's inconvenient. It's about doing the right thing, even when no one else is watching. It's about saying no to distractions, to mediocrity, and to people who want to waste your time. I know this from personal experience. Early in my career, I was often tempted to take the easy route, to avoid the tough conversations, to let laziness slide. But every time I did, I paid the price. Success, real success, doesn't come to those who avoid the hard work. It doesn't come to the ones who choose comfort over commitment. It comes to those who demand more from themselves, even when it's tough. You've got to set a standard for yourself, a standard that says, this is who I am, and this is what I'm about. It's a standard that says, I won't accept anything less than my best. And when you set that standard, others will have no choice but to rise to meet it, or they'll fall away. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you let someone slide? How many times have you tolerated poor performance because you didn't want to rock the boat? How many times have you avoided that difficult conversation because you didn't want to upset anyone? You can't afford to keep doing that. Your success depends on your ability to set high standards for yourself and for others. Think about the people in your life. Are they operating at the highest level? Are they pushing themselves to be their best? Or are they operating in mediocrity because you've allowed it? If you've been too nice, it's time to change that. It's time to raise the standard, not just for others, but for yourself. Because when you set high standards, you elevate everyone around you. You force them to level up, and you force yourself to rise as well. Now, I'm not saying you need to be rude or cold. That's not the point. You can be kind, you can be respectful, but you must also be firm. You must demand the best from yourself and from those around you. You must be willing to have the tough conversations. You must be willing to make the hard choices. And most importantly, you must be willing to let go of the people and the habits that are holding you back. In the end, the question you have to ask yourself is this: what do you want more? Do you want to be liked or do you want to be successful? Because the road to success is not paved with popularity. It's paved with discipline, standards, and hard work. If you can embrace that, you'll find that success will follow you, not because you're nice. There's a very clear distinction, and it's a distinction that could change everything for you if you grasp it. Being nice is easy. It's about saying what people want to hear, avoiding conflict, and keeping the peace, even when it means bending the truth. But kindness is something entirely different. It's rooted in honesty, in clarity, and in strength. It's the kind of communication that helps people grow, even if it stings a little. Let's start with this idea of clarity. Clarity is kindness. Weakness is not. When you're vague, when you avoid saying what needs to be said because you don't want to offend or disrupt, you're doing no one any favors, not yourself and not the other person. Clarity, though, is a gift. When you speak the truth with strength and grace, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping others too. I remember a time early in my career when I faced a situation that required me to be honest with someone I respected, someone I cared about. They were making some bad decisions in their business. And as much as I didn't want to upset them, I knew I couldn't keep quiet. If I stayed silent, I was doing them no favors. So I told them the truth. I told them what they needed to hear, not what they wanted to hear. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable. But in the end, it helped them make the changes they needed to get back on track. They were grateful for the clarity, even if they didn't like it at first. When you speak the truth clearly and directly, even when it's hard, you're being kind. You're giving people the opportunity to grow. You're helping them see reality. And yes, it may hurt in the short term. People may be upset or taken aback. But in the long run, they'll respect you for it. They'll appreciate that you didn't sugarcoat things. They'll recognize that your words came from a place of respect, not from a desire to manipulate or avoid discomfort. You see, niceness in its truest form is actually manipulative. Niceness is about making others feel good, even if it's not in their best interest. Niceness is about keeping the peace at any cost, even if it means compromising your values or lying. It's about avoiding confrontation, avoiding difficult conversations, and putting everyone else's comfort above your own integrity. But kindness is about speaking the truth. It's about showing up authentically and doing the right thing, regardless of how it might make you feel in the moment. Kindness is the ability to be clear, to be honest, and to do so in a way that maintains respect for others. It's not about being harsh, it's not about being rude, it's about being direct, and it's about being compassionate at the same time. Let's talk about the impact of indecision for a moment, because this ties into what we're discussing. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. When you're caught in a cycle of hesitation, when you're worried about making the wrong choice or upsetting someone, you miss the chance to act. While you're sitting there debating, someone else is stepping forward, taking action, and grabbing the opportunities that you're too afraid to go after. And I'm not talking about making some small, insignificant change here and there. I'm talking about real, transformative action. I'm talking about taking the risks that make your heart race, stepping into the unknown, and daring to do the things that make you feel alive and afraid all at once. If you're going to live a life of meaning, a life that truly matters, you've got to stop letting your comfort zone hold you hostage. You've got to stop allowing fear of change, fear of judgment, and fear of failure to control your actions. You've got to recognize that the life you want, the success you crave, the person you want to become, it's all waiting for you just outside your comfort zone. And here's the truth. You're never going to feel ready to make that move. You're never going to feel completely comfortable stepping into the unknown. But here's the secret. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to take the first step. The first step is always the hardest, but once you take it, momentum will begin to build. You'll start to see the possibilities that were hidden before. You'll start to realize that your true potential is not where you've been, but where you're willing to go. I know this from personal experience. Every time I've pushed myself beyond my comfort zone, every time I've taken a risk and chosen discomfort over ease, it has led to growth. It's led to greater opportunities, to higher levels of success, and to a deeper sense of fulfillment. And that's because success doesn't come to those who stay comfortable. It doesn't come to those who choose security over growth. It comes to those who are willing to take risks, who are willing to face discomfort, who are willing to step out of their safe little world and into the world of possibility. Now you might be thinking, but I don't want to lose my friends, my relationships, or my sense of stability. And I get it. The fear of change is real. But I'll tell you this, if your friends and relationships are truly meant to be, they'll adapt. They'll respect your growth, even if they don't fully understand it. And if they don't, maybe it's time to find new circles. Circles that encourage you to grow, to evolve, and to push the boundaries of what's possible. The key is this: when you choose to step outside your comfort zone, you're not just changing your circumstances, you're changing yourself. You're becoming the kind of person who can handle bigger challenges, bigger opportunities, and bigger success. You're becoming the person who is willing to face discomfort head on, who is willing to grow in ways that others won't. So I ask you today, are you ready to leave your comfort zone? Are you ready to step into the unknown, to take risks, to face discomfort, and to claim the success that's waiting for you on the other side? Your comfort zone is your cage. It's the place where your dreams go to die. But when you break free from it, that's when the magic happens. That's when you start to truly live. So take the first step, break out of that cage, and embrace the freedom that comes with stepping outside your comfort zone. Because that's where success lives, and it's waiting for you right now. Let me tell you something that most people overlook. If you don't set the agenda for your life, someone else will. That's the hard truth. And if you allow someone else to dictate your time, your energy, your focus, and your goals, you'll find yourself constantly busy but never getting anywhere meaningful. You'll be stuck in the rat race, chasing other people's dreams while your own slip further and further away. But here's where boundaries come in. Boundaries are the key to taking control of your life. Boundaries create respect, and respect creates wealth. Now, I don't just mean financial wealth. I mean wealth in every area of your life. Emotional, mental, and yes, financial too. The way you protect your time, the way you protect your energy, and the way you protect your goals is what shapes how others treat you. If you don't set clear boundaries, if you let people walk all over you, if you let your time be consumed by everyone else's demands, you're sending a message that your goals and your time aren't valuable. And that's a message you can't afford to send. I've had moments in my life where I wasn't good at setting boundaries. I let people dictate how I spent my time. I let demands from others eat into my focus, and I let distractions keep me from doing what I knew I needed to do. But here's what I learned. When you don't protect your time and your energy, you end up broke, mentally, emotionally, and financially. You end up feeling drained, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled. Success requires that you protect what's most important to you, your vision, your mission, and your purpose. Let me share an example with you from my own experience. When I first started out, I wasn't as disciplined with my boundaries as I am now. People would call me all the time, asking for favors, giving me advice, or just distracting me from what I should have been doing. I felt guilty saying no. I didn't want to disappoint anyone, so I said yes. I helped. I gave my time away freely. But what I didn't realize at the time was that I was sacrificing my future for someone else's present. I was letting other people's agendas take precedence over my own goals. And that's a recipe for failure. It wasn't until I began setting firm boundaries that I started to see things shift. I realized that my time was valuable, my energy was precious, and my goals deserved to be protected. I learned that saying no wasn't selfish. It was strategic. I learned that by saying no to the distractions, to the endless demands, to the people who wanted my time. Without offering anything in return, I was saying yes to the life I wanted. I was saying yes to my goals, my vision, and my future. And you know what happened when I started setting those boundaries? People started respecting me more. They saw that I was serious about my time and my goals. They saw that I wasn't available for every little request or distraction. They saw that I valued my vision and my purpose, and in turn, they respected that. Respect, as it turns out, isn't something that just happens. It's something you create by setting clear boundaries and sticking to them. You see, when you don't set boundaries, you're telling the world that your goals don't matter as much as their needs. You're telling them that it's okay to interrupt your focus, to take away your time, to distract you from your mission. And when you do that, you lose respect. People start to take advantage of you. Your time becomes a commodity that anyone can take at will. But when you set boundaries, when you guard your time and energy fiercely, you show people that you value yourself, and they will respect that. And that respect, that's when the opportunities start to come your way. That's when people start to see you as someone worthy of success, someone who takes their life seriously. And that's when the doors of wealth begin to open. Now, I want to be clear about something. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being rude or unkind. It doesn't mean being selfish or uncaring. In fact, setting boundaries is one of the most respectful things you can do, not only for yourself, but for others as well. When you set clear boundaries, you're teaching people how to treat you. You're teaching them that you won't tolerate disrespect, that you won't allow them to drain your time and energy, and that you won't allow them to take you off course from your mission. I've seen people who are afraid to set boundaries, afraid to say no, afraid to disappoint others. And what happens? They get burned out. They get resentful. They get frustrated because they've given so much of themselves away without receiving anything in return. They've allowed others to dictate their time. And in the end, their own dreams suffer. But when you learn to say no, when you learn to protect your time and energy, that's when your life begins to change. That's when you start making progress toward your goals, because you're no longer being pulled in a million different directions. That's when people start to respect you more, because they see that you take your time seriously. And that respect, it leads to wealth. Not just financial wealth, but wealth in your relationships, your mental well-being, and your overall success. Let me give you a simple way to think about it. If you treat your time like it's valuable, other people will too. If you treat your goals like they matter, other people will see that and treat them with the same level of importance. But if you don't set boundaries, if you allow people to take advantage of your time, your energy, and your focus, then you're telling the world that your goals don't matter. And when that happens, people won't respect you, and they won't respect your time. You have to protect what's important to you. You have to guard your time and energy, as though they are the most precious commodities in the world, because in many ways they are. When you set boundaries, you're not just protecting yourself. You're setting the stage for success. You're telling the world that you are serious, that you are focused, and that you are worthy of respect. And that respect, that's the foundation of wealth. It's the foundation of success. So I challenge you today to take a good look at your boundaries. Are you protecting your time, your goals, your energy? Are you letting others dictate your agenda, or are you taking control of your life? If you want success, if you want wealth, if you want respect, you've got to set those boundaries. And when you do, the world will begin to treat you the way you deserve to be treated, with respect. And that's when the magic happens. Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself chasing approval? Ever gone out of your way to get a pat on the back, a compliment, or a thumbs up from someone else? I'll tell you right now, approval is addictive. It feels good in the moment, doesn't it? That little burst of validation, the acknowledgement that you're doing something right. It's like a drug. But here's the problem. Approval doesn't move you forward. It keeps you stuck in place, looking for the next fix, the next round of validation, without ever truly progressing. Approval is like chasing the wind. It's fleeting. It's never enough. The more you crave it, the more you sacrifice your vision, your purpose, your future. You're too busy trying to please others, trying to be liked, trying to be accepted, that you lose sight of what you truly want to achieve. You get distracted, you get caught up in what everyone else thinks. And when that happens, your vision starts to fade. You want to know what separates those who achieve greatness from those who don't? It's not the amount of approval they get. It's not the number of people who cheer them on or tell them they're doing well. It's the ability to keep moving forward, regardless of who approves or disapproves. It's the ability to stay true to your vision, to your goals, even when the world doesn't understand you. And believe me, the world won't always understand you. In fact, you will be criticized, misunderstood, and yes, even rejected. But that's the price of progress. I'll give you an example from my own life. When I started on this journey, I wasn't always popular. I wasn't always well-liked. In fact, I faced a lot of criticism. People told me I was wasting my time, that I wasn't cut out for success, that I should just stick to the status quo. But here's the thing. I didn't let those opinions define me. I didn't let their approval, or lack thereof, stop me from moving forward. Because I knew one thing. Progress is the cure for approval. If you want to make real progress in your life, if you want to grow, you can't surround yourself with people who only agree with you, who only validate your every move. You've got to step out of the easy crowd. You got to surround yourself with people who challenge you, who push you to be better, who won't settle for mediocrity, even if it means they won't always approve of you. Progress is the cure for approval, because progress doesn't care what anyone thinks. Progress doesn't need validation. Progress doesn't need applause. All progress needs is action, dedication, and a willingness to move forward, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, and especially when it's unpopular. Let me tell you something else. Greatness doesn't come to those who play it safe, who stay in their comfort zones, who seek constant approval. Greatness comes to those who dare to be different, who dare to stand out, even if it means standing alone. It comes to those who are willing to be misunderstood, criticized, and even rejected. But they keep going. They keep moving forward. They keep growing, because they know that the only way to move forward is to stop worrying about who's behind them, who's watching, or who's judging. I've been misunderstood plenty of times in my life. I've been criticized. I've been told I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't qualified, that I wasn't cut out for success. And in those moments, I could have given up. I could have listened to the critics. I could have shrunk back and tried to fit in, tried to gain their approval. But if I had done that, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the success I've achieved. I wouldn't have the impact I've had on people's lives. I wouldn't have grown the way I did. When I look back at the people who have achieved the most, who have truly made a difference, they all have one thing in common. They weren't afraid to be misunderstood. They weren't afraid to stand alone, to go against the grain, to reject the easy path of approval. They knew that progress was the only thing that mattered. You have to stop chasing approval. It's a trap. It will keep you stuck in the same place, constantly looking for external validation, constantly worrying about what other people think. It's time to break free from that trap. It's time to stop seeking approval and start seeking progress. Progress is what will move you forward. Progress is what will take you to new heights. Progress is what will create the success you desire. And yes, progress will require you to make tough choices, to face criticism, and to be misunderstood. But in the end, it will be worth it, because progress will take you to places that approval never could. So ask yourself, are you chasing approval, or are you chasing progress? Are you spending your time trying to please others, trying to be liked, trying to be accepted, or are you focused on moving forward, growing, and achieving your goals? Regardless of who agrees or disagrees with you, The more you focus on progress, the less you'll need approval. And as you keep moving forward, you'll find that the only approval you need is your own. And that, my friends, is the only approval that will ever lead to lasting success.